Wednesday will mark the 45th anniversary of the June the 16th uprising, when Soweto students protested against the use of Afrikaans as a medium of instruction in schools. Well, today our young people face very different challenges, chief among them limited job prospects when they finish school. And this is why it's even more disheartening that bodies such as the NYDA, that's the National Youth Development Agency, seem to be continually failing the young that they were established to serve. A critical issue, particularly in Youth Month. I'm joined now by Sabia Mutala, a production coordinator at the NGO Corruption Watch. She and her colleague, Tawanda Kaseke, wrote an article for City Press over this past weekend, and she joins me now. Thank you so much for your time. Just give us a bit of a background about the NYDA. Why was it set up?
So the National Youth Development Agency is a government agency that really intends to provide opportunities for young people, particularly with regards to economic development. So what they are mandated to do is, for example, to develop the Integrated Youth Development Strategy. And they also administer the NYDA grant program, which is intended to help young people set up businesses and self-employ, essentially.
I see. It's got a yearly budget, you mentioned in the article, of about 554 million rand. That's nearly R500 million. That is a lot of money. Is it clear what it's achieved? Tell us a little bit more about that.
So if you look at the annual report from the 2019-2020 financial year, they have achieved clean audits, and the CEO of the NYDA has said that they've provided over 1,100 young people with opportunities to fund their own businesses. So if you look at their accounts, they have actually done a little bit of work. However, with such a huge budget, what's of real concern is how the NYDA is going to be led from this year onwards, considering that they haven't had a stable board since 2019. And each process to appoint a board has been marred with allegations of corruption and political influence.
So you've had a good look at what's going on with this board. So what do you think is at play here? Because if you don't have a functioning board, as we know, it's very difficult to have a vision and to make a plan and then to act on that plan.
No, definitely. We've seen with many state-owned entities in this country that board leadership is extremely important to ensure that these entities are functioning correctly and that money is accounted for and that mandates are actually executed. With the National Youth Development Agency, it's no different. And unfortunately, there's sort of relatively weak legislation to govern this appointment, meaning that the committee who's in charge of appointing was supposed to come up with solid criteria to ensure that the best people possible are at the helm of this institution. So far, what we've seen is that the ANC Youth League has been sort of alleged to have provided a list of preferred candidates, two of which remain on the short list in this round of the appointment process. But also we have sort of token candidates to represent gender and disability without really considering people's qualifications and skills and whether they're appropriate for the position of board member.
Yeah, and in fact, your article gives some quite shocking examples of people who have almost no experience. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So it is really important in a post-apartheid South Africa for boards and leadership structures to be representative. No one is disputing that. But it's problematic when you have sort of shortlisted candidates that have very little experience, 4 months administration internship for one of the candidates. And then a candidate who's representative of disability, however, she's currently a fifth-year medical student, which begs the question if she has time to sort of designate to the matters concerning the board. The board is mandated to deal with issues such as financial oversight, human resources oversight. And so it's really important that candidates for the board and who are shortlisted actually have those qualifications and skills and experience to ensure that the NYDA actually ends up serving young people. Because as you mentioned earlier, young people are really at dire straits, unfortunately.
Yeah, and talk to me about concerns about corruption. You say that there's so much infighting and allegations of corruption that actually this board is going nowhere.
Yep, the NYDA has had allegations of corruption against it in the past. I think around 2018, there were accusations that they'd increased their salaries without sort of due process. And back in 2013, there were also allegations of improper expenditure. So boards that manage large funds like this are always going to be vulnerable to corruption. And that's why it's the duty of our politicians and our parliamentarians to ensure that they have strong ethical leadership with integrity.
It's important that you're highlighting the concerns. How do we fix this problem?
So I think one of the main things, the NYDA is there to serve the youth, and young people should take an interest in leadership structures in our country. Avenues are always made for public comment on candidates for these leadership positions, and young people really need to sort of take that bull by the horns and make sure that their voices are heard. But even after leadership has been sort of appointed, young people still have avenues to make sure that their leaders are held accountable. And the NYDA, as a structure that is particularly mandated to look after the issues of young people, especially issues of employment and entrepreneurship, there's no room for young people to kind of look the other way. It has to be a concerted effort of active citizenship that young people take up, and other structures in society, civil society organizations, even other businesses, etc., need to always keep an eye on these kind of institutions and make sure that they're executing their mandates for the good of the people.
All right, well, thank you so much to you and your colleague, Tawanda Kaseke of Corruption Watch, who wrote that article and highlighted this issue. That is Sabia Mutala of the NGO Corruption Watch. No board at the NYDA since 2019. They have a yearly budget of almost R500 million.